Imagine millions of people migrating, not for economic opportunity, but for sheer survival. This displacement is driven by rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and resource scarcity. By 2040, climate migration will significantly rewrite global alliances and potentially spark conflicts. Nations will inevitably face unprecedented humanitarian challenges and significant shifting demographics. This near future urgently demands immediate attention and proactive strategic foresight from everyone. Are we truly ready for a world where environmental shifts ultimately dictate power dynamics? We will discuss this in today's video.
They report the chaos. We reveal the agenda.
Good evening and welcome to ATM. Tonight, we delve into a critical global issue, the quiet catastrophe of climate migration. For years, we've worried about climate change, fearing rising seas, extreme heat, and megastorms. But there is another, more insidious catastrophe unfolding right now, a quiet, almost invisible force that will reshape our maps, ignite new conflicts, and define the future of humanity. It is the greatest displacement of people in recorded history, driven not by war, but by the slow, relentless erosion of our planet. This is the unseen exodus. Let's be precise. We're not just talking about climate refugees, a term often debated in international law. We are talking about climate migrants, people forced to move, not by direct conflict, but because their homes, livelihoods, and entire way of life have been rendered unsustainable by environmental degradation. Droughts, floods, desertification, rising sea levels, ecosystem collapse. These are the silent weapons of displacement. Look at the recent devastating floods here in Pakistan, displacing millions. This isn't a one-off event. It's a terrifying glimpse into our future. The catastrophic 2022 monsoon floods affected 33 million people and displaced over 7 million, with Karachi potentially seeing millions more climate migrants by 2050. In the Sahel, once fertile lands are turning to dust, forcing communities to abandon ancestral homes. They don't have passports. They don't have visas. They only have one choice: to leave. These aren't distant projections. These are unfolding realities right now. The early warning signs are flashing red across the globe. From the sinking island nations of the Pacific, where entire communities are losing their land inch by agonizing inch, to the fertile agricultural belts experiencing unprecedented heat waves and crop failures. The global south, especially regions highly dependent on rain-fed agriculture, is being hit first and hardest. Satellite imagery reveals once green fields turning brown and parched, accompanied by news headlines about crop failures and water shortages. Even in wealthier nations, prime agricultural land is becoming unviable, pushing smaller farmers out of business and into a desperate search for new opportunities. Climate change significantly impacts agriculture, with rising temperatures and changing weather patterns leading to lower crop yields due to water scarcity, drought, heat waves, and flooding. Erosion and soil degradation are also exacerbated, reducing soil quality and affecting crop growth, potentially leading to a 30% decline in global food yields by 2050. And this is just the beginning. The projections for 2040 are staggering. The World Bank estimates hundreds of millions of people could be internally displaced by climate change within their own countries by 2050. Other UN reports suggest up to 1.2 billion people globally could be on the move by 2040 due to intertwined climate and resource pressures. Sub-Saharan Africa could see 86 million internal climate migrants, East Asia and the Pacific 49 million, and South Asia 40 million by 2050. North Africa could face 19 million, Latin America 17 million, and Eastern Europe and Central Asia 5 million internal climate migrants. International law currently lacks a coherent framework for recognizing and protecting individuals displaced by environmental or climatic factors. These individuals do not typically qualify as refugees under the 1951 Refugee Convention, yet broader human rights obligations may entitle them to international protection. Climate change also exacerbates existing conflicts, particularly over resources, leading to further displacement. Extremist groups may exploit climate-related grievances and resource scarcity to expand their influence, contributing to instability. The quiet catastrophe of climate migration presents a significant challenge that requires global action. Immediate and concerted action to reduce global emissions and support green, inclusive, and resilient development is crucial to reduce the scale of this migration. By understanding the scale, drivers, and impacts of climate migration, and by implementing effective adaptation and mitigation strategies, the international community can work towards a more sustainable and equitable future for all. We've seen the impending wave, hundreds of millions of climate migrants, forced from their homes by a planet at war with itself. This unprecedented displacement is driven by rising sea levels, extreme weather events, prolonged droughts, and other severe environmental changes, creating a global humanitarian crisis of immense proportions. But this raises a terrifyingly practical question that demands our immediate attention. Where will all these displaced people go? The scale of this movement is unlike anything humanity has faced before, prompting a critical examination of potential destinations and their capacities. This isn't a random dispersion of individuals seeking new lives. It is the beginning of a great, unplanned, and largely unmanaged relocation of the human species. This mass movement signifies a fundamental shift in global demographics and resource distribution, driven by environmental imperatives. This profound shift is from uninhabitable zones, rendered unlivable by climate change, to areas of perceived safety and opportunity. These new frontiers are often chosen based on their current climate resilience and potential for future stability, creating new patterns of human settlement. The destinations, the new frontiers of this century, will be defined by one overarching factor: climate resilience. This means regions capable of withstanding the impacts of a changing climate, offering stable environments and resources for large populations. We are talking about the receiver's wealthier nations primarily located in northern latitudes, such as Canada and parts of northern Europe. These regions are often seen as havens due to their cooler climates and robust infrastructures, making them attractive to climate migrants. Warming temperatures might even, paradoxically, open up vast new agricultural lands in these northern regions, transforming previously unproductive areas into fertile grounds. This potential for increased food production could be a significant draw for displaced populations seeking sustenance and economic opportunity. We're also talking about stable agricultural zones with resilient water supplies, such as New Zealand's temperate environment. Its consistent rainfall and moderate climate make it an ideal location for sustained agriculture, offering a secure future for those seeking refuge from environmental instability. However, the primary destination for most internal migrants, those displaced within their own countries, will be existing cities. These urban centers, already densely populated, are expected to absorb the largest numbers of people seeking safety and economic prospects. Megacities like Karachi in Pakistan, Lagos in Nigeria, and Sao Paulo in Brazil are projected to swell to an unprecedented size, far beyond their current capacities. This rapid expansion will create immense challenges for urban planning and resource management.
This massive influx will place an almost unbearable strain on essential services such as housing, sanitation, electricity, and social services. The existing infrastructure in these cities is simply not designed to accommodate such a dramatic increase in population, leading to widespread shortages and systemic failures. These cities, already struggling with existing challenges, will become the chaotic, vibrant, and deeply stressed front lines of the Great Relocation. They will be melting pots of cultures and aspirations, but also centers of immense pressure and social upheaval, testing the limits of urban resilience.
But for every new frontier that emerges, a homeland is tragically lost, leaving behind a void of history and community. This loss represents not just physical displacement, but the erosion of cultural heritage and personal identity for millions. As people move, they leave behind what are often referred to as ghost towns and depopulation traps. These are regions where entire communities vanish, leaving behind empty homes and silent streets, stark reminders of lives uprooted by environmental forces. We are seeing this phenomenon already in parts of rural Bangladesh, where entire villages are abandoned after repeated and devastating flooding. The relentless rise of sea levels and extreme weather events make these areas uninhabitable, forcing residents to seek new homes elsewhere. We see it also in Central America, where years of persistent drought and widespread crop failure have hollowed out once thriving farming communities. The inability to sustain livelihoods from the land leaves residents with no choice but to migrate, often internally, to urban centers. This is not just a loss of people, it's a profound loss of culture, of history, and of economic capacity. The departure of entire communities erases generations of traditions, knowledge, and local economies, leaving behind a cultural and economic vacuum. The social fabric of these regions disintegrates as the young and able-bodied, those with the most resources and resilience, leave first. This exodus leaves behind the elderly and vulnerable, who are often unable to relocate and face immense hardship in increasingly desolate areas. These abandoned regions become zones of economic and social collapse, a stark and haunting testament to the worlds we are leaving behind. They serve as powerful visual reminders of the devastating human cost of climate change and environmental degradation. This global reshuffling of populations is arguably the single biggest transformation of the 21st century, reshaping societies and economies on an unprecedented scale. Its long-term consequences will reverberate for generations, fundamentally altering the human experience. It will inevitably change the ethnic, cultural, and political makeup of virtually every nation on Earth. As diverse populations converge and disperse, new demographic realities will emerge, challenging existing social structures and national identities. It will create new majorities and new minorities within nations, forcing us to confront uncomfortable questions about identity, belonging, and social cohesion. These shifts will necessitate new approaches to governance, integration, and cultural understanding. This profound transformation challenges the very concept of a nation-state, as traditional borders and national allegiances become increasingly fluid in the face of mass migration. The idea of a fixed national identity may give way to more dynamic, transnational communities. We've explored where the people will go, tracing the paths of millions seeking refuge and opportunity. But a critical question remains: what happens when they actually get there, when these vast movements of people reach their intended destinations? What happens when this human tide, driven by desperation and hope, meets the hard reality of existing borders, finite resources, and deeply entrenched old conflicts? The potential for friction and new challenges is immense, requiring careful consideration and proactive solutions. In the next part of our series, we will delve deeper into the geopolitical earthquake that this unprecedented migration is about to trigger. We will examine the potential for new alliances, conflicts, and the reshaping of global power dynamics as nations grapple with the consequences of a changing world. We've seen the wave building, hundreds of millions strong, a human tide driven by the slow violence of climate change. We've seen where they will go, seeking refuge and survival as their homes become uninhabitable. But what happens when this unprecedented human tide, born from the slow violence of climate change, crashes against the hard, unyielding lines we call borders? This collision is not merely a humanitarian crisis, it is a fundamental challenge to global stability and existing geopolitical structures. The answer is a geopolitical earthquake, a complete reordering of global power, conflict, and alliances. This seismic shift will redefine international relations, creating new fault lines and exacerbating old ones as nations grapple with the immense pressures of mass displacement. The first and most brutal consequence will be the escalation of resource wars. As climate change intensifies, it acts as a threat multiplier, exacerbating existing tensions and creating new challenges for nations worldwide. When a population is forced to move, they are not just seeking space, they are seeking survival. They are fleeing droughts, floods, and other climate-related disasters, desperately searching for areas with available resources. They need water, and they need fertile land. And in a warming world, these resources are the new oil, the new gold, scarce and fiercely contested. This influx of displaced populations can strain already limited resources, leading to conflicts between host communities and migrants. Existing tensions will explode. Here in South Asia, the delicate balance of the Indus Waters Treaty between India and Pakistan, already strained by political mistrust, will face an unbearable new pressure as climate change impacts glacial melt and migration patterns shift. Transboundary river basins, such as the Indus, are particularly vulnerable to these shifts, making them flashpoints for potential conflict. We will see conflicts erupt not over ideology, but over the fundamental right to drink, to farm, to survive. These will be the wars of the 21st century, driven by the most basic human needs and the scarcity of essential resources. Faced with this unprecedented wave, nations are reacting in one of two ways. They are either building fortresses or forging alliances. These two divergent strategies reflect the global divide in addressing climate-induced migration. The wealthiest nations are pouring billions into climate fortresses, high-tech border walls, AI-powered surveillance, and militarized patrols designed to keep the human tide out. This climate fortress approach aims to protect their resources and maintain stability within their borders, often at the expense of humanitarian concerns. But a new, powerful counter-movement is rising. The sender nations, those most impacted by climate change, are beginning to band together, recognizing their shared vulnerability and the need for collective action. They are forming new political and economic blocs, not based on old Cold War alignments, but on the shared crisis of survival. These alliances seek to address the historical and moral debt owed by developed countries, which have contributed the most to climate change. They are starting to use their collective voice at the UN to demand not aid, but climate reparations, arguing that the wealthy nations who caused the crisis have a historical and moral debt to pay. By uniting, these nations aim to amplify their collective voice at international forums like the UN and advocate for policies that support climate adaptation and mitigation. And as these new blocs form and tensions rise, the international institutions we built in the 20th century are proving utterly unprepared. These institutions, designed for a different era, struggle to address the unique challenges posed by climate-induced migration. The 1951 Refugee Convention, the cornerstone of international law, offers no protection to climate migrants, as it only covers persecution based on race, religion, or political opinion. They are legally invisible, trapped in a protection gap without adequate legal recourse or status. Our international frameworks are designed for a world that no longer exists. They are built to handle political refugees, not entire populations rendered homeless by a changing planet. This broken system necessitates a re-evaluation of international laws and policies to address the needs of climate migrants and ensure their protection. The system is broken, and into this legal and moral vacuum, millions are now falling, facing an uncertain future without legal protection or international recognition. The absence of a clear legal framework for climate refugees creates a profound humanitarian crisis. In the final part, we will look at the massive economic upheaval this crisis will cause and ask if there is any way to adapt to this unavoidable and terrifying new future. We will explore the financial implications and potential solutions to this global challenge. Today, we delve into a critical global challenge: the profound economic upheaval triggered by mass migration, a direct consequence of our changing climate. As environmental shifts displace millions, new economic landscapes are rapidly forming, creating both unprecedented opportunities and severe vulnerabilities. We're witnessing the rise of what some call the resilience industry, a sector profiting from the very crises that uproot communities. This industry encompasses everything from advanced climate-resilient infrastructure to sophisticated disaster preparedness technologies and enhanced security services. Companies specializing in climate adaptation, such as those developing drought-resistant crops or sea-level defense systems, are experiencing significant growth. The demand for robust security solutions also escalates as geopolitical tensions rise in regions affected by resource scarcity and population movements. These enterprises, often backed by substantial investment, are becoming economic powerhouses, creating jobs and driving innovation in specific niches. However, this prosperity is not evenly distributed. It often concentrates wealth in the hands of a few, while the majority face increasing hardship. The resilience industry thrives on the very instability that devastates others, raising ethical questions about profiting from global crises. Now, let's turn our attention to the other side of this economic coin, the immense suffering and systemic breakdowns experienced by the most vulnerable. Millions are forced from their homes, losing livelihoods, cultural heritage, and their very sense of belonging. Traditional economies, especially those reliant on agriculture or local resources, collapse under the weight of environmental degradation and mass exodus. This displacement creates immense pressure on host communities, straining resources and often leading to social unrest and increased competition. The ripple effect extends globally, severely disrupting the intricate web of our supply chains. Imagine a complex animated concept of a global supply chain: cargo ships crossing oceans, trucks traversing continents, and factories humming with production. Now, visualize this chain breaking. Ports become inaccessible due to rising sea levels, key transportation routes are disrupted by extreme weather, and labor shortages halt production. This leads to shortages of essential goods, from food and medicine to raw materials, causing prices to skyrocket and economies to falter. The interconnectedness of our world means that a crisis in one region can quickly cascade into a global economic downturn. Small businesses, unable to absorb the increased costs and delays, are often the first casualties, leading to widespread unemployment. The human cost is immeasurable, with families struggling to meet basic needs and facing an uncertain future. The economic upheaval we face is not a distant threat, it is a present reality, demanding our immediate and collective attention. We must move beyond simply observing these trends and actively engage in finding sustainable, equitable solutions. This requires a fundamental shift in how we approach climate change, migration, and global economics. Governments, corporations, and individuals all have a role to play in mitigating the impacts and building a more resilient future. Investing in renewable energy, supporting climate-vulnerable nations, and fostering inclusive economic development are crucial steps. We must advocate for policies that protect displaced populations and ensure their human rights are upheld, regardless of their origin. Supporting organizations on the ground that provide aid and long-term solutions for those affected by climate migration is also vital. Education and awareness are powerful tools. Understanding the complexities of this crisis is the first step towards meaningful action. Let us not be passive observers, but active participants in shaping a future where economic stability and environmental justice are accessible to all. Your engagement matters. Please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on these critical issues.